Welcome back to Have You Heard, the official athletics podcast of Nichols College. Today we're sitting down with Nichols women's basketball head coach MaryLynn Skarzenski. MaryLynn is a Hall of Famer here at Nichols and one of the most decorated student athletes we've ever had. Hope you enjoy. We're here with Nichols College women's basketball coach MaryLynn Skarzenski. We're filming this on Wednesday, November 20th. The Bison open the season 1 and 2. They're hosting MIT tonight at 7. Coach, how's it going so far today?
It's going great. We're excited to have our home opener today. We have a very young team, 8 freshmen. Starting 3 different freshmen have started so far, so we're going with our youth, hoping we can grow throughout the year and really make a run into the CCC playoffs.
Coach, you've opened the season 1 and 2. You got an opening win down at St. Joe's. Rough start at Brandeis last couple of games, but so far, talk about the efforts this season.
Our team effort is great. We are definitely growing as we go. We had a rough start at Brandeis, didn't come out and play defense. Our effort level wasn't really there, similar to how our practice was, and the freshmen are really learning that we have to go hard every day, and they have to give their best effort in order for us to succeed as a team and really get better.
We're going to circle back to this season in a few minutes, but for those listeners that don't know, MaryLynn's a 2009 graduate of Nichols College. She's one of the most decorated student athletes we've had as a women's basketball player, also dabbled in women's soccer for a year. But you came to Nichols from New Jersey, so talk about just a little bit of your high school career and then how you ended up in Dudley.
So in high school, I actually was a 5-sport athlete. I ran cross country and track and field for my first 3 years, played basketball for all 4, and then played soccer and softball as a senior. I was all conference in all of the sports, and I was all state in 4 of the sports. I knew I wanted to play basketball in college all throughout, so that was my goal, which is part of how I ended up playing soccer and softball. And then I really was recruited kind of locally in New Jersey. I didn't want to be in New Jersey at all. I wanted to go someplace else. Small world, one of my high school teachers went to college with Pete Sanella, who was the AIC coach at the time, and he started to recruit me a little bit to be a walk-on at AIC. I was not interested in going to Springfield, Massachusetts. About a week, 2 weeks later, his wife called me. She had recently gotten the Nichols job. I was very confused when I got the phone call because she said, "Hey, it's Coach Sanella," and, well, the Coach Sanella I was talking to was a man. Now I was talking to Coach Sanella, a woman. She explained the whole thing, wanted me to come up for a visit. I'm pretty dedicated to competing, so the first time I could get to campus was after Mother's Day in May of my senior year.
Wow.
So, yep, very late. So I came to Nichols. All of the dorms had been cleaned out. Graduation had already occurred. So I toured campus, and I looked at an empty dorm room. We walked around. My dad and my high school coach came with me. I met with the head of the education department at the time because I was going to be a math major, and I actually hated campus. It's a funny story I tell all of my recruits. It was the middle of nowhere. I'm from New Jersey. I can walk to 2 malls within 5 minutes of my house. I came to Nichols. Was nothing around, a lot less developed than it is now. It smelled like cow manure. I was like, I'm not going to the country. And so we drove the 3 hours home. I continued to stay in contact with Coach Sanella, and she sold me on being here. I understand that that's my job now. I'm a salesperson, and I'm selling our program and selling the institution, but she sold me on what Nichols could do for me and what I could do for Nichols, and it ended up being a perfect fit. I came up to Dudley as a freshman, played soccer my freshman year, played basketball all 4 years, and I never really wanted to look back. It was home. When Lynn left my sophomore year, I thought about transferring, but I loved it here and I didn't want to go. The education you get at Nichols is par none. You're ready to get a job, more ready than anyone else, and I can say that having worked at different institutions. It's the thing we do really well, so it's really easy to convince people to come here having had that experience.
Sure. Now talk about at that time, Nichols was recruiting you, AIC was recruiting you. It was a husband-wife fighting over the kitchen table about this thing. Where else had you been recruited or had you looked at that time?
So I had been recruited at NJIT, which was transitioning at the time from, I believe, a D2 to a D1.
Okay.
I didn't have a lot of interest. I was being recruited at Washington College down in Maryland. I was being recruited by almost all of the state schools in New Jersey. So that
Division 2s, Division 3s.
Some of the Division 2s, like Georgian Corporation, all of the NJAC, basically.
Yep.
I had no desire to be in New Jersey. I wanted to experience something different. I wanted to go someplace else. And I was recruited by a couple of schools down south in North Carolina, South Carolina, but I really didn't have an interest in going that far. And then I did look at Brown University and was accepted, but was not recruited to play basketball. And I just ended up that Nichols was the place to be.
Yeah. And you mentioned it was kind of a bland campus when you came up. Looking at it now, are you jealous of the student-athlete experience our kids have compared to you? I mean, Fell Center wasn't here, the NAB wasn't here, the fitness center, the weight room, all these things were different.
It was very different. I think campus in 2005 when I came was phenomenal for the times. We definitely have upgraded. I will say the Fell Student Center is beautiful and the building is so much better, but the food that was served in the old Student Center and the little diner that we had was way better than Fell's. Best breakfast sandwiches you can get around here.
And this is coming from someone who's from New Jersey with pork rolls and sausage, egg, and cheese.
It's very true. Definitely no pork roll, we should get on that, but...
We'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
So you come in here, and you had a pretty decorated career. I believe you led the team in scoring as a freshman, but then sophomore year you were CCC first team, junior year, again, first team defensive player of the year, and then senior year you kind of picked up the hat trick, defensive player of the year, scholar athlete of the year, player of the year, program record 25 wins. Just what stands out most about your student athlete experience at Nichols?
My student athlete experience, the best part was my teammates. I don't have any of the success that I had if I didn't play with a great group of young women through all my 4 years. I would have to say my freshman year was the most fun I could imagine having on a college campus. I came into a program that hadn't had a ton of success. They were borderline maybe making the playoffs, if not making it at all. And we were able to go on great runs. The best game of my college career is the first time we beat Salve, my freshman year, and then we played them 3 days later and we were able to beat them again, and really for us it proved that it wasn't a fluke and we were a team to be reckoned with in the CCC. It's just the experience you get with your teammates here, their family. It's great. They all come back now for alumni events. We hash about our times in the dorms, our times on the court, the times we agitated our coaches, which is funny to think because I'm on the other side and I think about all the things that my players do or could be doing, and it makes me laugh based on what we did as student athletes here and how our experience was, and it's just a great place to be.
You mentioned about the playoff or lack of playoff success when you got here. You went to the playoffs your last 3 years, ECAC tournament for 3 years. At any point during that run, 4 years I believe it was, I correct myself, but at any point during that run, did you start to think about, hey, maybe I want to get into coaching at some point, or you were a mathematics major, was that more of where you thought you were headed?
So when I came to college, I actually wanted to be a high school teacher and a high school coach. I always knew I wanted to coach. Teaching and coaching are very similar. Then I started my college career and I was going to classes. I enjoy math, which I know is strange for most people, but math is really easy and you don't write papers, so if you're good at it, you should major in it. And then I continued to take the classes and kind of float around the athletic department is the best way I can say it.
Sure.
There's a lot of free time when you're in college, and I'm a gym rat, so I would pop into other coaches' offices, watch film with them, be it football, field hockey, softball, whatever. Men's basketball for sure. Coach Soak was definitely great at allowing me to help, and I kind of fell in love with what a college coach does. Then my sophomore year of college, I did my observations for student teaching, and I actually hated it. Couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life.
It's good to learn that while you're in college as opposed to when you get out and get that job.
Yeah, it was perfect. I learned that, nope, that's not what I want to do, and I started to think about becoming a college coach as a sophomore. So I started to follow around the coaches more, talk to Charlie, kind of see what Charlie does on a day-to-day as well. And I decided by junior year that that's what I was going to do. During my senior season, I really paid attention to what other coaches were doing and kind of chatted them up after games, or, like when you're inbounding the ball on their sideline, I'd make little jokes, whatever. Just, I'm a friendly kid in that sense, and I kind of got to know people. So when my season ended senior year, we happened to lose in the ECAC championship at home, which is pretty devastating. I emailed every coach that I respected and liked the way they play, asking if they knew of any opportunities to get a graduate assistantship or an assistant coaching position, and I was offered 3 jobs on the spot. A couple I was not interested in, and then I did apply for some other jobs. It just worked out that I had some family stuff going on and kind of had to delay the process of getting a job, and kind of where I was going to go. Wasn't sure if I needed to be in New Jersey or not, and UNE was willing to wait for me to make a decision. So I moved up to Old Orchard Beach, actually, and took the assistant coaching position in Maine. It was part-time. I moved up there with no other job and figured I'd figure it out once I got there. I did figure it out, and I had a great 2 years of experience while I was there. We were able to win a conference championship my first year and an ECAC championship my second year.
Sidebar, but what everyone listening should take from this is that you can get a job through email, and I'm an example of this too. When I was graduating my senior year, I'm from New Jersey as well. I must have emailed every school in New Jersey saying, hey, I'm graduating Townsend University. I'm looking for a job in sports information. I landed a couple of interviews after that, and I ended up at Rutgers University. So right here, 2 people got jobs through email, so don't be afraid to use it.
I would say, too, the sidebar with that, a lot of times a job is about who you know, not what you know. It's about putting your best self out there all the time because the network you build is what's going to get your foot in the door.
You should always consider yourself on an interview at all times, whether it's at a dinner party, family party, game, anything in that situation. Always consider yourself on an interview. So, Coach, talk about going up to UNE. At the time, both schools were in the CCC. No sense of rivalry there, no sense of I'm going to the enemy, just I got a job and I'm heading up Maine and it's further from New Jersey than Nichols was.
I think there was a little bit of a sense of rivalry. Definitely not our rivals in that sense for basketball-wise. We had beaten UNE my first 3 years, happened to lose to them my senior year, actually to end our 21-game winning streak, last game of the season, going into playoffs. So not a place I was like heartfelt about, but I really respected the way Coach Ewing coached there. He really prepared his teams very well, was starting to turn around a program. It just seemed like a great opportunity. So I did go up there. There were some hard feelings from my teammates and the coaches at the time. We happened to play down here that year for senior day, actually, for Lindsey Bennett's senior day. And it was not as a welcoming environment as you would hope, being an alum, but I get it. I'm competitive.
There was no video tribute, anything when you walked in?
No, nothing great. I mean, I think Lindsay was really the most welcoming person, which was nice. And I got to be here for her last game of her career, which was awesome because we were teammates for 3 years, and she is one of my favorite teammates.
And this is Lindsey
Bennett.
Lindsey Bennett, sorry.
But going up to UNE, it was the best experience I could possibly have. We won games. We lost some heartbreakers. We played Bowdoin, we played top competition. We made it to the NCAA tournament. It was my first experience in the NCAA tournament, and it was great. There's nothing else I can really say about it besides that it helped me to get where I am today.
Sure. And you parlayed that into a head coaching job at Daniel Webster where you spent for 2 years. So just briefly talk about your little stint there.
So when I was at UNE, I started to apply for jobs, full-time jobs, because you don't always want to work at CVS for 45 hours a week and put in 45 hours as a coach. So I wanted to be doing this gig full-time. I got passed up for some jobs, some assistant jobs, some head coaching jobs. Daniel Webster happened to open in late September of 2011, so I applied. Coach Ewing actually knew the AD at the time, Robin Seidman. They had worked at Brandeis together.
Again, it's all who you know.
That is the story of my career, to be honest. So he made a call for me, and I got my foot in the door. I went on an interview. The campus was nice. Everything seemed to be a good fit. It was going to be my first head coaching job. I got a phone call on October 11th, I believe, asking if I could take the job, and I started my first head coaching job on October 13th. We were practicing 2 days later.
So talk about, you're in the big chair now. You slide over a little bit. What's the first thing you want to do? Do you start thinking, okay, this is what happened at Nichols. This is how it went with Ewing at UNE. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, or were you kind of, I guess those first couple of days, where were you?
So I guess for that experience, it was very different because it's 2 days before practice. I took over a team that won the NECC championship the year before. Regis had just moved to the NECC from the CCC, so a better team coming into the league. I was coaching a team with only 9 players, 6 of which were seniors. I came in with, I wanted to see what they did before. I wanted to get what their favorite drills were. I wanted to know what worked for them on offense. I watched a ton of film. I really didn't go in thinking about changing much, if anything, and just trying to add to what they did. And
is that partially because it's so late in the game at that point?
I think that really part of it, yes. There wasn't much time to change. We were starting in 2 days. I really needed to get to know the players and start to build relationships. So the basketball piece, I was like, you know what? They're successful, so let's roll with what they did and kind of build from there.
Sure. So 2 years there, and then you head down to Mitchell in New London, Connecticut for 4 years. Had some pretty successful seasons, made the conference plus 4 years in a row, won conference championship appearance, 500 better 3 of those years. What's the biggest experience? And you wore many hats at Mitchell too, so talk about trying to coach and also just your administrative duties.
So while I was at Mitchell, when I took the Mitchell job, I actually was the head basketball coach and the men's and women's cross country coach to start.
Right.
Which is an interesting experience.
That'll be a separate podcast.
Yeah, we can talk about cross country all day. The best experience at Mitchell was watching those players grow and develop. It's a different type of student that kind of goes to Mitchell in the best way possible, and I could see them go from 17, 18-year-olds into 22, 23-year-old women. They were ready to move on and grow, and they grew both on the court and off the court. They're a little more rough around the edges, and needed more coaching and just more mentoring, which is really my favorite part of the job. Basketball-wise, the best experience was we are the only NECC team to ever beat Regis.
Wow.
My first year at Mitchell, we upset them in the semifinals to go to the championship at their place, and it's the only time they ever lost an NECC game.
That's impressive.
Which is pretty cool. During my career at Mitchell, though, I decided to go and get my master's at Northeastern, so I added that to my plate, and then our AD left, so we had an interim AD, and I became the interim assistant athletic director and took on more responsibilities while being a full-time grad student. For me, which was great. I like to be busy. I like to have lots of things going on. I don't do boredom well. I talk really fast. I do everything fast, so it kind of fits me. So then I parlayed that into being the assistant AD there, got my master's in sports leadership, and then come 2017, the Nichols job is posted online in February after the season, and I called Chris Colvin and said, tell me about this job. Tell me where the program's going.
For you at that point, do you see that job posting and think at the time, like, this is my dream job, I'm waiting for this job, or not necessarily quite there? And you can be honest here.
To be perfectly honest, I wasn't sure if Nichols was the place for me at that point. Nichols had part-time coaches for a while. There was a lot of transition on the women's side of the house in sports, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be the right fit. I wasn't sure if that's where I wanted to be. I love the idea of being home. I love the idea of being able to rebuild a program, kind of my program that I was able to work so hard for 4 years is the way I felt. But I wanted to see what was going on. I needed to know more. So I was able to have a great conversation with Chris on the phone. We then had lunch together, and I was able to learn some more. And then I was able to come back to campus, see some of the buildings that had gone up since the last time I'd been here, and I fell in love. At that point, I knew this was the job for me. I knew that this was something I wanted to work to do, to turn around a program. And it was someplace that I felt that I really could be successful in all facets. Was
there something during the lunch or the interview, the phone call with Chris that really jumped out at you or sparked you that maybe you didn't expect to hear about Nichols, or that it changed? You said, wow, I didn't expect to hear that.
I think the thing that really jumped out was when I was on the interview and I got to meet with both VPs, Mike Stanton and Bill Boffey, is how much they care about athletics, both men's and women's athletics, and how much they were willing to invest in the athletic side of the house and how important that is to Nichols. I knew what Nichols does academically. I knew that we prepare our students to get a job. You really develop and grow. You find yourself while you're here. I knew all those things, and I was sold on that. I went through it. But I really needed to know that everyone was invested in turning this around, that they were going to give me the resources that were needed to build a program that at some point here we're going to be competing in the NCAA tournament. That's the goal.
Sure.
But we have to have the resources to do it. And when I was here, I felt that that was going to happen, and I still believe that.
So you've been through some programs now at UNE that had some success. You've been through a program that had 9 student athletes, and you also coach cross country. And then you come in here. What was different about the group you inherited, not putting anyone on the spot, from the other jobs you had taken?
So coming into Nichols, I mean, I had high expectations. We had a great group of young women my first year. We just didn't know how to win. It's a program that hadn't won in a number of years, and the student athletes were really here to have fun. Winning, when it was there, it was just out of reach for us. We didn't know how to get over that hump.
Sure.
We needed to bring in players who knew how to win, players who knew how to compete, and it takes a few years of recruiting to do that. The young women who have graduated through the time I've been here are great. They're competitors. They definitely would be the ultimate role players on any team that you could coach. It's just we needed to get over a hump and be at the level that Roger Williams and UNE, Endicott, and Western New England are in the conference. I want to be at that level where we're getting regionally ranked, where we have a chance for an at-large bid. I really look at our league. It should be a 2-bid league every year, if not a 3-bid league. But we have to do our part and get better.
Sure. Coach talk is always changing the culture, and it sounds like that was a lot of what you were trying to do here, both on the court and off the court with these student athletes. So this year's team comes in. You got 8 freshmen. I saw you excited about it all summer. You couldn't wait for practice to start. Talk about the first couple of days of practice and watching these kids' transformation from high school student athletes to collegiate student athletes.
The practice started and it was awesome. It's great to finally get on the court with them. Having 8 freshmen is very exciting at times, very hair-pulling at other times. It's a lot of youth. It's a lot of people who you're trying to direct and teach and get on the same page. It's a lot of bad habits you're trying to break. They all come from different programs. They've all been taught different things, and now they're trying to learn the Nichols way. But it's been great. It's been a ton of fun. They're super teachable, which makes my job easier. They're willing to be corrected. They're willing to do it the way that we need to do it to be successful. So it's been a ton of fun. It's probably the most fun I've had coaching in a number of years.
Sure. And these are kids that come in as well and not having been through some losing seasons. So as if to say change the culture, when you have half your squad basically that really knows nothing about Nichols, that has to help you as a coach.
It helps tremendously. They have no thought of who we're playing, how they've been in the past. There's no thought process of, oh, we have to play UNE, who had won the conference for 6 years running up till last year. Like, they just see everyone as another college team. We're not looking at people as like, oh, this is David versus Goliath anymore. We're just rolling out and trying to win basketball games, which is a ton of fun.
Sure. Your expectations for this season, have you had to temper them a little bit after the first couple of games, or what did you guys set realistically for your team this year?
Our expectations are to make the conference tournament. I do think we can kind of try to achieve more than that, but our baseline is to make the conference tournament. We haven't been there in a number of years. I think for us, we play a tough non-conference schedule. We play a ton of new MAC schools. We're rolling into 3 for our next 3 games. They're all competitive, very good defensive teams. So we're going to challenge ourselves in our non-conference, which should help us going into conference play. We're not playing schools that we should just roll through and then hope for the best when we get into conference. We may take some lumps here, but it should make us stronger and better come January and February when it matters. Our goal is to be over 500 and then be in the conference tournament and run from there. It doesn't matter if we make the conference tournament as the 6 or the 7 seed, because if we're playing our best basketball, nobody's going to want to play us.
Sure. You spoke very highly of your student-athlete experience at Nichols here. How has it been the last couple of years with the 2 graduating class you've had to give them a better student-athlete experience? And maybe if there's anything specific that you were able to give them or the college was able to give them that you didn't have? We mentioned some of the facilities amongst others.
I mean, the facilities are definitely an added benefit. Having the locker room renovated for us is great as well. Having a full-time strength and conditioning coach is huge. I know we're one of the few schools in conference that has a full-time strength and conditioning coach. It's definitely an added benefit. It would have been so beneficial when we were here. We lifted as a team at 6 a.m. 3 times a week without a coach. It was just our own doing. To have someone that was actually walking us through those things would have been so helpful. I think also for our student athletes, they just respect Coach Bob so much and love what he brings to it. And then also for Nichols, having been at other institutions, we have the best athletic training staff that there is. We have 5 full-time athletic trainers who just are here to serve our student athletes and keep them healthy. They care about making sure they're able to play, but in the best shape that they can possibly be in.
Sure.
And our sports med staff, there's nothing great that they could do everything for us. Our student athletes need them, they respect them, and they're here to do whatever it takes.
And how many trainers were here when you were here?
When I was here, I think we had 4. Okay. 2 were GAs at the time and then 2 full-time.
Sure. So the staff's grown a little bit in that sense as well, too. And also talk about your other role here. You're an assistant athletic director. You do scheduling. You wear many hats. How was that easier, difficult coaching basketball and dealing with these other things and putting out fires on a day-to-day basis?
It's not easy, but it's not hard, I guess is the best way to describe it.
You like to stay busy.
Yeah, I like to stay busy. It's all about managing my time. It becomes a little difficult when you have players who want to come in and get an individual workout or watch film in the middle of the day. It has to be more scheduled than just popping into my office. But it is fairly easy to kind of move stuff around. It's just a lot of times I'm just on call and kind of have to be able to access email or pick up a phone call if I have to change a bus or do anything like that.
Sure.
But it really comes back to just I have to manage my time well. And for me, I have a lot of time. It's just fitting it all into the day and working around things.
And you have a very needy dog at home who also wants to see you a little bit.
Yeah, no, I have definitely the most needy dog there is. She is a PETA, but the WIMS is important, and the team loves her, so, she works with us.
That's perfect. You mentioned wanting to get away from New Jersey when you were going away to college, and you went further with Maine. But your father, I believe, comes to most of the games. Will he be here tonight? Just what does that mean having him here in the stands supporting you?
My family, I'm really close to my family, and my dad pretty much made almost all the games when I was in college. We joke about the games that he wasn't able to come to for the reasons. We joke about a game where my grandmother was sick, and I was like, don't worry about it. We're going to win. If we don't win, I'm not playing anymore. And people get mad at me, and I was like, no, I'm going to make sure we win so you don't miss anything. He still comes and is super supportive of me, which is great. It's kind of like my backbone, the person I can talk to about anything. He actually won't be here this evening. My brother's actually getting married in New Zealand.
Selfish timing.
Yeah, bad timing on my brother's part.
And
but
New Zealand,
it's hard for me to get to New Zealand from Dudley during basketball season, but I do wish him the best and his wife, Teresa. But it's something that my dad's going to love. He's been in New Zealand now for almost over a week. So they get married this Sunday, so it'll be a great experience for him. And then he'll be back for our when we start conference play in December, which will be great.
Sure. And just lastly, we touched on it a little bit before. What can fans listening, faculty and staff, students listening, what can they expect to see from the Bison this year? Maybe they haven't seen the last couple of years.
You can expect us to be playing a higher tempo offensive game. We're going to put up more points than we have in previous years, and we're going to look to push tempo. We've kind of been the team that really couldn't put the ball in the ocean the last couple of years and struggled to score, so we really relied on our defense, and this year we're going to really look to push tempo on teams and get out and run, and it's kind of a more exciting style of basketball, which has been commented on by some of our parents so far, that we're a little bit more fun to watch now.
Sure. MaryLynn, this has been great. Thanks so much for joining us again. Fans, we're filming this on a Wednesday. We do have a game tonight, so this may be post-dated by the time this goes up. You're also home next week before Thanksgiving break. Best of luck this season.
Thank you, Pete.